Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, we'll have a little chat, which will probably last for 15 minutes, so it's not a little chat, I'm sorry. Alright, if you have time, please keep on watching. Okay, I like to be well informed of what's going on in the world, so I tend to watch a lot of news. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and again, because I like to be well informed of what's going on, you probably heard me talk about the Philippines a lot because obviously that is my home country. I care for the country, my family is still there, and also there's a lot of tension in that region. But recently I've noticed that there's also a lot of things going on happening closer to home here in the United States. If you watch the news, you're probably familiar with this. From June 12 to 17, Russian vessels visited Havana, Cuba. Four Russian vessels arrived at the port of Havana, and this was an official visit. And among these vessels were a nuclear submarine and a warship. The frigate, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, I'm sorry, but this was the frigate Admiral Gorshkov. Russian language hard. Anyways, so the visit comes after completed exercises using precision missile weapons that the Russians conducted in the Atlantic. So Havana assured that these ships were not transporting any nuclear weapons, but that doesn't mean that these ships' vessels were unarmed, because they were. The frigate and submarine can launch Circon hypersonic missiles, Caliber cruise missiles, and Onyx anti-ships missiles. That's noted by the Washington Post. So with that, the US reacted to that by making sure that they monitored the Russian flotilla since the visit to Cuba was announced. In fact, they even have this, what they call observing groups, which included 3 US Navy destroyers, a Coast Guard cutter, and allied units, which included the Canadian and French frigates. So a lot of people talked about this online. In fact, I listened to the podcast. What's his name again? I'm going to put it on the screen. Russell Brand. Is that his name? I'm going to put it on the screen. Anyways, he provided some really good information on this topic. And with this visit, you can see that the efforts of the US to limit their presence everywhere, especially in Latin America, is obviously failing. Putin's goal is to signal that he can still operate within the American sphere of influence. You know, when the US do their joint exercises on the other side of the world, I mean, let's be honest, that is a show of power. You know, the goal here is to show dominance. And obviously, Putin also wants to show that they can do that as well in our turf, in our backyard. So this visit shows that Putin's threats to take asymmetrical steps in retaliation for Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to use American weapons to strike Russian territory to defend Kharkiv. Now, I'm sure he's not happy with Biden's decision. He's very unhappy with that. In fact, he recently visited North Korea to have talks with Kim Jong-un. Is that his name? Yes. And obviously, we all know that North Korea has plenty of weapons that Russia could probably use in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Now, I also saw this in one news outlet. I can't remember exactly, but they're saying that there's some talks of the possibility of allowing Ukraine to be a part of NATO. Now, I'm not sure if that's a very good idea, because can you imagine how he's going to react if NATO is right in his front door, like very, very close? He's not going to be happy with this. And his reaction, I mean, we shall see how he reacts to that. So, and I don't think that is a good idea. Anyways, a lot of Floridians were talking about this because obviously it was too close for comfort. And a footage released by the Russian Defense Ministry last Thursday showed the frigate Admiral Gorshkov and nuclear-powered submarine Kazan. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying all of this correctly, so you're just gonna have to forgive me. Sailing into Havana Bay, about 100 miles south of Florida. That's pretty close. Too close for comfort. In fact, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis criticized the Biden administration for espousing weakness on a global stage. Yes, that's pretty close. Now, speaking of Florida, you probably already know, I'm from Florida, proud Floridian. Anyways, this reminds me of this book, Strategic Relocation by Joel Skousen. My husband bought this book from Amazon a while back, and this is a guidebook which covers the safe places to relocate in the world, including the United States. And, you know, in terms of basically safe relocation, in terms of geography, climate, natural disaster, threats, and end of the world, case scenarios. And Florida is very low on that list, and now you see why. We're very exposed to the elements. I mean, 100 miles south of Florida, that's, yeah. Well, I mean, Cuba is very close to Florida, so, I mean, it makes sense, but yes, that's not good. So what do you think of this visit? I mean, this is not the first time Russia visited Cuba. I mean, they've done it before. I mean, it's basically their equivalent to those, the American military exercises, joint exercises in the other side of the world. But yeah, that's not good. They're becoming more and more, what do you call the word? I gotta think of the word. They're definitely showing their dominance as well in this side of the world. What do you think of that? What's your opinion? Put it in the comment section below. Let's move on to the next topic before I start getting lost. All right, so there's this new Senate bill that's getting a lot of people talking, especially the women, because this new Senate bill may require women in the military draft or in the draft. I saw a lot of people talking about this, and I mean, this is not the first time that a similar provision was submitted. This provision has been in the NDAA before in the past, and it never actually made it through. And I don't think this one will pass as well, because you'd be surprised. You'd think that women especially would be more in favor of this now, because obviously there's a lot of push of equality through and through with everything. But you'll be surprised. In 2016, 63% agreed with women being part of the draft. That dropped to 45%. So I had the expectation that that number would go up, because again, more and more, they're very quite vocal about, being equal with everything. But apparently, majority of women in the US, including the feminists, don't want to be drafted in the military. In my opinion, and this is probably not going to be everybody's opinion, obviously, I don't think women should be in the military, period. I mean, you could do like a support type of service, as a nurse and all that, but being surrounded by men constantly and have to deal with that, I mean, that could cause a lot of problems. That's another conversation. That's a big conversation, to be exact. Now, of course, I do think that, I do agree, if women wants to be in the military, they want to be given the opportunity. I mean, that's available already anyways. If you want to enlist in the military, you can, but we all know that women are not lining up to get into the military. In fact, even the men don't want to be a part of the military anymore, which is sad, because I mean, let's be honest, there is a challenge when it comes to, recruitment crisis in the US. In fact, they said there is a historic recruitment crisis in the military, retention problems, and even men don't want to serve the military anymore. So I think, with a lot of things going on in the US right now, the US is trying to deter war, not just with China, Russia, I mean, the Middle East, I mean, you name it, on all different directions. And yes, that is a challenge. There's not enough people enlisting in the military, but I think there's more to it. I think a lot of it, because as I mentioned, even men don't want to even really enlist anymore. I think instead of pushing for this bill to require women in the draft, I think the US government and Americans should work on encouraging Americans how to love their country. What it means to love America, what it means to be a patriot, that love your country, being proud to be an American. I've noticed that more and more Americans born and raised in America hates America. People that were dying to come here, so desperate to come here. As soon as they settle here, they hate America. I mean, in some parts of America, if you have an American flag in front of your house, people get offended by that. I'm so glad and thankful where I live, because here you'll see flag everywhere. American flags everywhere, and that's actually, people think that's nice thing. In some places, even in my state, people get offended when they see an American flag. They think it's racist. So I think we should foster, is that the word, foster, that love for America, we should rekindle that love for this country. The government, I think, will have to sell the concept of what it really means to love this America, what it really means to be an American, and to do whatever it takes to help the country. And I think the key is to unify the country. And for women wanting to serve the military, obviously that's already available. You can enlist in the military. But as I've mentioned, I don't see a lot of women like lining up to serve in the military, because majority of women, and of course this is my opinion, you don't have to agree, majority of women don't really want to be in that environment. And I think, yes, if you want women to be in the military, yes, they should be allowed to go to the military, but I think we should also not lower the standards just to get women in the military. If a woman is able to complete all of the tests, the same test that's given to men, and she passes that and she does well without lowering the standards, okay, the same test that's given to men should be given to the women. If a woman passes that, then yes, let her serve their military. But I think lowering the standards not going to help anyone, because instead of helping, that person might end up becoming a liability. Again, this is my opinion on this. And I personally don't think this bill will pass. This will not pass because there's going to be a lot of pushback on this, including GOP lawmakers. In fact, a lot of them are already speaking out with their opposition to this bill. And of course, there's also a lot of organizations out there who are not in favor of this, including majority of the women in the US. So yes, I think there's a lot of ways for women to serve. You don't have to be in the front lines, because I honestly don't think women should be there, to be very honest. That's my opinion. Okay, I'll have to cut this video here because it's getting too long. I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye, everyone.